The evening light filtered through the tall windows of Marcello's, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, as Alexander Kane finished what had become a ritual of solitary dining. At 43, he had built a technology empire worth $200 million, but success had come at the price of meaningful human connection. Tonight, like most nights, he sat alone at his reserved corner table, surrounded by the finest food money could buy, and the profound loneliness that money could not cure. Alexander was reaching for his wallet when he heard a small voice behind him, so soft he almost missed it over the gentle hum of restaurant conversation. "Excuse me, sir. May we have your leftovers, please?" He turned in his chair to find two little girls standing beside his table, identical twins who appeared to be no more than 5 years old. They wore matching white lace dresses that had once been beautiful, but now showed the telltale signs of careful washing and multiple wearings. Their blonde hair was neatly braided, and despite their obvious circumstances, they stood with the dignity that spoke of careful parenting. But it was their eyes that stopped Alexander's breath completely. They held a combination of hope and resignation that no child should ever possess, the look of young souls who had learned that disappointment was more common than kindness, but who still chose to ask because sometimes, miraculously, people said yes. "Your leftovers?" Alexander repeated, his voice catching slightly as he processed what they were asking. The girl on the left, who seemed to be the designated spokesperson, nodded solemnly. "We saw that you did not finish your pasta, and our mama taught us never to let good food go to waste. We would be very careful with it." Alexander's gaze moved past the children to see a young woman standing near the restaurant entrance, her blonde hair styled in an elegant updo, wearing a simple cream-colored dress that emphasized her natural grace. Even from a distance, he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she watched her daughters with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. "Are those your daughters?" Alexander asked gently. Both girls nodded. "That is our mama," the second twin said. "She brought us here because she used to work in a place like this and she wanted us to see how beautiful restaurants can be. But we are not eating today because Mama says we need to save our money for important things." Alexander felt something crack inside his chest. He looked at his barely touched plate of gourmet pasta, then back at these two little girls who were asking for his leftovers with more dignity than most adults displayed when asking for favors. "What are your names?" he asked, signaling discreetly to the waiter. "I am Sophie and this is my sister Emma," the first girl replied. "We are twins, but not the kind that thinks the same thoughts. Emma likes flowers, and I like books." "And what does your mama like?" Alexander found himself asking. Emma answered this time, her voice bright with love. "Mama likes taking care of people. She used to work in a big restaurant, but then the restaurant closed and now she cleans offices at night so she can be with us during the day." The waiter arrived at Alexander's table, clearly uncomfortable with the presence of the children. "Sir, I am terribly sorry about this disturbance. I will have them removed immediately." "That will not be necessary," Alexander said firmly, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had built his empire. "Please bring me 3 more chairs and 3 additional menus. These young ladies and their mother will be joining me for dinner." Sophie and Emma exchanged glances of amazement. "But sir," Sophie said carefully, "we do not have money for dinner. We only asked for leftovers." Alexander smiled, feeling something warm unfold in his chest for the first time in years. "Dinner will be my treat. But first, would you please ask your mother to join us? I would very much like to meet the woman who raised such polite and thoughtful daughters." As the girls hurried toward their mother, Alexander watched the woman's face transform from confusion to embarrassment to cautious hope. When she approached his table a few minutes later, he stood immediately, extending his hand in formal introduction. "Alexander Kane," he said simply. "Your daughters just taught me something important about grace and dignity." The woman hesitated before accepting his handshake. "Rebecca Martinez." I am so sorry if my girls bothered you. They know better than to approach strangers, but I think hunger sometimes makes children brave in ways that worry their mothers. They did not bother me at all, Alexander assured her as they all took their seats. In fact, they may have just saved me from another evening of eating alone while wondering why success feels so empty. As the evening progressed, Alexander found himself drawn into conversation with this small family in a way that felt completely natural. Rebecca spoke with quiet intelligence about her work, her hopes for her daughter's education, and the challenges of raising twins as a single mother. Sophie and Emma chattered about their favorite books and flowers, asking Alexander questions about his life with the fearless curiosity of children who had been taught that all people were worth knowing. Mama used to be a chef, Emma announced, proudly during dessert. She can make anything taste good, even when we only have simple ingredients. Is that true? Alexander asked Rebecca. She blushed slightly. I trained at culinary school before the girls were born. I worked at several high-end restaurants, but when I became a single mother, I needed more predictable hours. Cleaning offices is not glamorous, but it lets me be home when my daughters need me. Alexander nodded thoughtfully. For months, he had been searching for someone to oversee the corporate dining facilities at his company headquarters. He needed someone with culinary training, management experience, and the kind of integrity that would ensure his employees were well cared for. Rebecca, he said carefully, would you be interested in hearing about a job opportunity? I run a technology company and we have been looking for someone to manage our corporate food services. The position would involve menu planning, vendor relations, and ensuring that our employees have access to good, nutritious meals. Rebecca stared at him in disbelief. Mr. Kane, you do not know anything about my qualifications or my work history. You cannot possibly be offering me a job based on one dinner conversation. You are right that I do not know your resume, Alexander replied. But I know that you raised two daughters who ask politely for leftovers instead of simply taking what they need. I know that you brought them to a beautiful restaurant not to make them feel poor, but to show them that beauty exists in the world. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Sophie looked up from her ice cream with wide eyes. Does this mean Mama would not have to clean offices anymore? It means your mama would have a job that uses her talents and pays. Enough for you to never have to ask for leftovers again, Alexander said gently. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Rebecca pulled Alexander aside. Why are you doing this? You do not know us and you owe us nothing. Alexander looked across the restaurant at Sophie and Emma, who were carefully collecting the small toys the restaurant had given them with their children's meals, treating each item like a precious treasure. Because your daughters looked at me and saw someone worth asking for help rather than someone to be afraid of, he said quietly. Because in a world where most people walk past suffering without seeing it, you taught your children to ask for what they need with dignity. Because sometimes the universe sends us exactly what we need in the most unexpected packages. 6 months. Later, as Alexander watched Rebecca transform the corporate dining experience at Kane Technologies, he often thought about that evening at Marcello's. The company's new food service program had become a model for other corporations, but more importantly, it had given him back something he had not realized he had lost. The ability to see abundance not just in terms of wealth, but in terms of human connection. Sophie and Emma visited the office every day after school, doing their homework in the executive lounge and charming every employee they met. They still asked thoughtful questions and treated everyone they encountered with the same respectful curiosity they had shown that first night. Sometimes the most important business decisions are made not in boardrooms, but in restaurants where two little girls have the courage to ask for leftovers and the wisdom to see potential kindness in a stranger's eyes.